Senator from Kansas.
Mr. President, thank you. Today I am sent to address as if in today under 5 budget proposal of the federal government. At a glance, that would be the responsible thing. The back home in Kansas, small owners that do that every year. They operate, and we know it needs to do well. However, the Senate has a budget 2013, 3 years. First speech on the Senate floor of the United States a little more ago, I indicated to my colleagues, the greatest concern our country is out of control. I'm here because still concerned. We spend money and we can delay decisions to correct national debts more than trillions. Enormous debt, our economic and threatened prosperity of a generation who will have to for our irresponsibility and passing of one of the most responsible Congress. By law, the fourth priority lines for the year and process of how much money should be cut, eliminated further. So, out of budget, the appropriation process, member of the Sessions Committee and operations work, in many ways, the appropriation process used to be on, not the way to run our country. To be back on a fiscal stability, we set and then we get to them. Any conversation in federal include assessment of entitlements. Those programs, Social Security and mandatory spending, makes up 50% of budget. We had one. This percentage increase head as retire workers are there. Without a long-term or significantly increased fiscal will be, as I remember the Senate Committee, where operations deals with about spending on this. Done a job. I hate to be over to. But we've done a job at line on missionary spending % that every year. Pretty flat the last several, but solve our fiscal by dealing the percent included in this process, deal with the portions of challenges, not only appropriations and the challenges here to determine we spend, the broader of so-called spending ignored in 5 budgeted early, all but contain proposals to these. I critique none of the budgets move in the direction of balance. I would do, but I commend my colleague offering solutions to problems. It bothered me that members of the Senate serious but immediately at political and continue or the face really makes sense. Proposals that Senate in the House seriously to work to put forward sense solutions that will be these programs for futures. Not about ending entitlement programs. In fact, that we come from just recent medicine source tell us Medicare and 30 will significant future. Therefore, the taking those programs that they are available for those who need future. I'm able to tell a person questionable to get security one higher. I want her to be. We don't choose the honest yes. And we have obligation stewards their dollars. Our state is seen something that's fickle, academic, or likely partisan. Truth is, of controlling and has a real consequence on the lives of Americans, certainly on the in which we live and operate. Whether Americans can job, make payment homes, meals, and whether their children bright future and the opportunity to pursue all American dreams. We continue to balance when we don't on the port of balance, it increasing in higher rates and economy, which means less investment or jobs. The opportunity to improve American direct and where others feel in the future. Jobs can go back and when to work, they can put on their family, they for their children's education and save for retirement. Most important, every America again be pursue American dream.